And welcome in to the UMBC Ryan Odom Basketball Report. Gary Stein along with the men's basketball coach Ryan Odom. A little bit later on, we'll chat with Director of Athletics Tim Hall will join us, talk about the athletic program, and we'll also meet the point guard that makes the UMBC men's basketball team go. But first off, Coach, last when we left our viewers, we were heading up to Drexel to play the Dragons up in Philadelphia. Yeah. So let's recap that before we get to Towson and then on to Florida Gulf Coast.
Yeah, we had two tough games in a row. Obviously traveled up to Philly the night before the game. It was actually the weekend of the Army-Navy game, like we discussed last weekend. So there was a lot going on in Philly, that particular weekend, and it was a great effort by our guys. We got off to a solid start, again in the game, and played pretty well early. Drexel fought back tremendously, took an 8-point lead going into halftime, and it was time for our guys to regroup. And we got in at halftime. We hadn't taken care of the ball. Up to that point, we were getting some balls knocked loose. Our transition defense was a little bit suspect. And the guys really focused in the second half on trying to turn that around. And we took care of the ball. We got back in transition. And offensively, we had one of our better halves.
And the player who had his best half, and it was a UMBC record actually, was 27 points in the second half. KJ Jackson, we're going to meet him in a minute. But was that the plan, was to put the ball in his hands in the second half?
Yeah, I mean, we've obviously added RJ in the backcourt with him now, and they're playing, exclusively together, which I think has helped KJ. The ball moves a little bit better. He's able to get inside the defense. He's the one guy right now that is consistently getting in there, and we need him to continue to do that. And he's making much better decisions of when to shoot and when to pass. And that's a big thing, for our team, and we need him to continue to do that. But that was a special half, and once he gets going like that, he's hard to stop.
91-76 was the final by 15 up in Philadelphia. That made the UMBC record 6-4. A couple of days later, you come back home against the Towson team. Beltway battle, 17 miles separate the two campuses. 59th time that the two teams have met. No daylight between you guys during regulation and first overtime. Second overtime, they kind of separate themselves a little bit. A big three-pointer by Brian Fobbs, who ended up with 32 points in the game.
Yeah, he was special, throughout the game, and we knew that going in. He's a very good player. He's proven that he can really shoot the ball and drive, which makes, when you have those two things going for you, it makes it extra hard to guard him. And credit Towson for continuing to hang, because we came back after halftime and took a lead, and down the stretch had our opportunities there to potentially put it away. They fought back every time. And it was a great game all around. Obviously, the result wasn't what we wanted, but I think Pat said it right. I think both teams can grow from that experience.
Yeah, they're a grinded-out team, obviously, and they controlled the boards, I think 46-32. Dennis Tunstall had 15 rebounds. Question for you, and I got to bring up the free throw shooting. I mean, that was certainly a weakness of UMBC in that game. As a coach, I know you guys practice free throw shooting. There's no doubt about it. What can you actually do, though? I mean, like once the game starts and once they're playing, it's free throw shooting has got to be more of a mental thing, really, than anything else.
Yeah, it really can. And I think what happened in that particular game, because we were 11 for 13 against Drexel.
The last two games, you were 86%.
Then you come back in this game, and we had kind of what I call a blow-up hole, like people have in golf.
Right.
And we had a little bit of a triple bogey there, and unfortunately, it happens. It is what it is. But I think as you really break it down, we didn't get to the line in the first half.
At all.
And so I think that's where you begin to get comfortable with the line. And so it's kind of when you're shooting them. And I think we started shooting them later in the game when it really was tight and meant something, and we hadn't been there. And we weren't comfortable at that point. And, once you miss one, then all of a sudden it can become a little bit of a challenge. But, KJ made two there to tie it up, to get us into that overtime. Then we got the stop, to extend the game, which was good. So, I mean, it's part of the game. Towson, on the other hand, shot it extremely well. And so you could look at that one stat and say they won the game there. And while I would say, yes, you're probably right, there were countless other things that not only UMBC could look at, but Towson could look at as well that were factors within the game. And Towson didn't necessarily rebound like they're used to in the first half. Second half, they made it a priority to go to the glass. for us, we had too many mental errors in that game. Underneath out of bounds mistakes, switching mistakes, even on the last play. Things that we've been pretty good at so far this season that didn't show themselves in that particular game. So, it's a process, and we got to go back and learn from what happened within that game. We got to be able to finish the game a little bit better than we did, and I think we could turn it certainly into a positive.
A quick question on Brandon Horvath, who is a very emotional player. I think he brings the crowd to life, and certainly he and Max Curran are both exciting around the basket. He got teed up in the game. I think it was a taunting situation. What do you tell a player, after or even in practice about those types of things?
Yeah, don't do it again, number one. I think you learn your lesson. He had one in the Shenandoah game, and went back and looked at that, and, it's a point of emphasis for the refs. And, they're getting graded, like, we're getting graded from an NCAA standpoint. You want to have the best team that you can have. They want to advance as well as refs. And so if they miss those things and they aren't calling them, well, then that's a point of emphasis. That's a strike against them. And so, you can't be mad at the refs for making a call that is a point of emphasis. We have to be mad at ourselves for making a mental error there. Right. Get back on defense. You made a great play. All right, we know better than that. And I'm not saying we don't want to be passionate while we're playing. I definitely want high fives and chest bumps and being excited to play. But at the same time, we don't want to be disrespectful to the other team.
So the record is 6-5, and now Florida Gulf Coast University comes to town on a Sunday night, 7 p.m. start. And, what they did 6 years ago in the NCAA tournament, they made it all the way to the Sweet 16, and they have the dunking mentality, and they've pretty much been doing that ever since. Your thoughts on this team? This is the first time they're coming to Baltimore, to what I know.
Yeah, no doubt. First time I've ever coached against them, in my career. And, they have a new coach, and Coach Fly has done a great job so far early in the season. They have a good amount back, from last year. They did lose a few key pieces, but they have tremendous size. And they've played a really hard schedule early on. Michigan State and Colorado State, and they've traveled around and played some games and haven't played that many home games, similar to us a little bit. Mm-hmm. But, I like their team. They can shoot the ball. They're aggressive. They get out and run. So our transition defense is going to be really, really important. And we just need to play well in this building. All right, we need to get it going here at home. We haven't played particularly well at home this season, and this is an opportunity for us.
I want to zero in on one of their players. They've got a bunch of scorers, but the one guy who's missed actually most of the season is Rayshawn Scott, their big guy, 6'9", 255. I think he's only played 4 games, 8.5 rebounds per game. That's a guy who, at least on the defensive end and scoring as well, that's a guy that you have to count for.
Yeah, no question, especially coming after last game. Towson did a really nice job of impacting us with their interior offense. So not only the offensive rebounds, but just getting it in there and scoring some on occasion. And so we've got to make sure that we do a really good job. I'm confident in our big guys, our players. Dan's, getting ready to have a chance to come back. I don't know if he'll be able to play in this game or not yet. That'll be determined after the next few days of practice. But Sam's, coming along. Max has done a nice job. Max gives up his body night in and night out.
Charges, everything.
Charges. Yep. And so does Joe. Mm-hmm. We've got to get some other guys joining that little party because I think that can be a strength for us.
All right, so that's Sunday night at 7 o'clock right here at the UMBC Event Center. We'll take a timeout here. When we return, we'll meet the Director of Athletics, Tim Hall, from UMBC when the UMBC Ryan Odom Basketball Report continues. And welcome back to the show. Gary Stein along with Ryan Odom, head men's basketball coach at UMBC, and in the middle, joined by the head guy, Director of Athletics, Tim Hall. Welcome in.
Welcome.
How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
I was just talking to you off air a minute ago, and it's 6 years now. This is your 6th year here at UMBC. I think it's flown by. What are your thoughts as you are now in your 6th year here?
Yeah, 6 years. It is in many respects surreal. that it's gone by so fast. And I think when you're in an environment where you work every day with wonderful student athletes and first-class coaches and staff, and a university that really wants to help you build an intercollegiate athletics program, and one that can be a source of pride for alumni and the community, the region, and beyond. And so when you have all the oars rowing in the same direction, I think it makes it easy, and then time goes fast. So we've accomplished a lot in 5+ years, but certainly not where I would like us to be going forward. There's still a lot more to get done to support and serve these student athletes, and so looking forward to leading those efforts.
Well, one of the sources of pride for really both of you is this building. I mean, for years, the RAC, the Retrievers Activity Center, was a beloved place. There's no doubt about it. Some great basketball and great sporting events were held there. But in terms of, the atmosphere, there is nothing that building had that this one does. This is a crowning accomplishment here.
It sure is, and it is what they will say is, the jewel of the crown. And we have two jewels here with the crown, certainly Coach Odom, and then also this building. And when I interviewed for the job and talked with Dr. Rabowski a lot, the unique value proposition that I talked about was, if we could build basketball and have it have the type of success that we ended up having, it could be a lens through which others can view this institution that maybe they wouldn't have had the opportunity to prior to. And we talk a lot about the 3 C's, and those are coach, conference, and commitment. And so certainly the America East is the right conference for us right now, and we've shown that we can be competitive. We do have the right coach, there's no question. I think he's one of the best in America. And then the commitment piece is the commitment to all the things that build something special. So we're really great in the fine arts here, and the commitment can be seen in the Fine and Performing Arts building. We're committed in STEM, and you can see that through the efforts that have been put into the Meyerhoff Scholars Program relative to STEM. And so if we're going to be good in athletics and our signature sports basketball, we have to show the commitment, and this building and this person over here. Those are the jewels in that crown that are allowing us to make that happen.
Ryan, on your part, were these the things that you guys talked about when you were interviewing in the process?
Absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, when I began thinking about UMBC, it was all due to this guy right here, and his leadership here at UMBC has been nothing short of spectacular since the day he arrived. And you want to be with good people. You want to be with people that you trust, that share in a vision and a goal. And certainly, Tim obviously he loves basketball. And I'd be interested, to kind of segue into, when did you first figure out as a young kid, or why did you begin to grow your love for basketball? Why was basketball so important to you growing up?
It's an interesting question. It was just the sport that I gravitated to. And I remember on Sunday mornings before we would go to Mass, my brother and I, my older brother and I, would play with the plywood backboards and the rims. We would play in the basement, and it seemed like he was always, because he was older, either North Carolina or one of the better teams, and I always had to be Notre Dame.
Digger fellows, right?
Yeah, for whatever. Yeah, Kelly Tripucka. I was, but it's just the sport that I always gravitated to, and I played, but I wasn't certainly the best player out there, but grew up in a family of educators and knew that I wanted to have my life's work and my passion really being an educator through sport. And loving basketball and being at a school that's really basketball centric in terms of the anchor sport is something that's pretty special. But it's I love all sports, certainly. We support them all here, but basketball has a special place in my heart for sure.
But the basketball team has done absolutely special things. I don't think we've had a conversation since the win over Virginia in the NCAA tournament. Just talk about that and what that has done to the UMBC basketball brand since.
Well, I think from a basketball perspective, other institutions, other universities know that we're serious. I mean, when I hear coaches and other individuals who, in the short homestand that we've had here or during the summer, that have said, hey, we want to see your building, we want to tour, and we want to see what the locker room looks like and the commitment there, and the fact that we have a dedicated practice facility that I would put up against any in the country. we had an all-department meeting yesterday, and I said, you know what, we're special people doing special things, and the reason for that is because I will take people over things all the time. And yes, we have all of these new tools and accoutrements that are helping us do the job, but it's always about people. And Ryan has a great staff. Our student athletes are first rate, and so the win has just heightened the attention to the university in every level. Academically, from a student enrollment perspective, applications are up, requests for applications are up. There's a little bit of a spike. We already have really high achieving potential students, but as they're evaluating, not only is the academic credentials high to begin with, but after Virginia, they're even a little bit higher. And so rising tide raises all ships.
Right.
I think the last stat that I read, and I'm not sure if I'm repeating it correctly, but the NCAA tournament, I think, is only number 2 or number 3 behind, I know, World Cup and FIFA, and then one other sport in terms of that first weekend of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. So there were so many eyes on that tournament and on that game and that historic upset that it has put UMBC even more on that proverbial map than it ever was to begin with. And so what makes me most proud about it is that it articulates to the outside world that we are student athletes. You know, I was walking down the hall with Coach Odom the other day, and the first thing that we were talking about, because he had just finished up a conversation with Abby Day, who's the assistant AD for academics and works directly with the men's basketball program, how proud he was of how our guys are finishing. So the world is getting to see that when I took the job, I really believe we can build basketball, and we can do it in a manner in which success in academics and success in athletics was not mutually exclusive. You could have both. We had to put some things in place to do that. The community's been very helpful in allowing us to do that and being supporters and on board with us, and you can see the results.
How much time do you guys spend together, like on a weekly basis?
I mean, I wouldn't say that we spend a lot of time together, but we talk every day. You know, there's text messages, there's phone calls, and certainly he's the biggest supporter, you know, for me. You know, we lost the other night, and he's the first one to text me, you know, right away. He knows, you know, how tough it is when you lose a hard-fought game like that. And he's just a great leader. And I know the other coaches feel that. I know our players feel that. And, you know, it's been really special to be here with him, you know, these 3 years.
You know, Joe Sherburne was quoted as saying that he's a dog lover, and one of the reasons that he was drawn to UMBC was because of the mascot.
Yeah.
We had a conversation just before the show here today. You're a dog lover. You have 3 dogs at home. Yeah. Do you ever talk about that with Joe at all?
No, I haven't had a chance to talk with him about that at all. No, we haven't. But yeah, our family's dog lovers as well, and I guess we're pushovers when it comes to getting a new puppy.
I think we all are to a certain degree.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, 6 years, as I mentioned, has gone by. Not only basketball success, but you've had other successes as well. We had Pete Caringi on a couple of weeks ago, who made it to the America East Conference Championship in soccer. A few years ago, he made it all the way to the Final Four in soccer. You've had other successes. Swimming and diving has won multiple America East Conference crowns.
Baseball.
Baseball in 2017. This athletic department has grown not only academically, but athletically as well over these last 6 years.
It has, and I think if I've brought anything, I hope it's the ability to really hire the right people. And I think, you know, Gary, this is an overused phrase. It's, you know, hire really good people and get out of their way. And that doesn't, by any stretch of the imagination, mean abdicate from serving them.
Let them do their job.
You hire them, let them do their job, and serve as a resource for them. So I look at a lot of what I do as, how can I help remove roadblocks for you so that you can be successful? And I think that's why we've had a little bit of success. And then also, you know, coaches primarily, I think all really good employees do, but coaches especially put a lot of pressure on themselves. And I want to create an environment where coaches feel like, yes, we want academic success and we want to see athletic success, and it's sort of like going up the escalator. We hope it's a little bit more the next year than it was the previous. But I really want them to feel that the only pressure most of the time that they feel is the pressure that they put on themselves. And so I heard Bill Gates one time when I was flipping channels. He and his wife Melinda were talking about their foundation, and he said, you know, in life you need 2 things, time or money. And for us, and he was saying specifically to them, he said, for us, money doesn't matter. We want to do these things to, he was talking about some charities that overseas. And that really resonated with me, and to say, well, yeah, when you're a mid-major institution who is growing a program, if you don't have the resources, you need time to be able to get those. If you're hiring new people into positions where you haven't had a level of success, whether administratively or coaches, they need time. And so to create an environment where you can say, coaches, yes, we want to see success. Employees, yes, we want to see success. We're going to help you, but we don't want it to be such a highly pressurized situation that it's one more difficult burden you're feeling in addition to the pressure you already put on yourself. So, I think if you can create an environment that's conducive to learning, allowing people to make mistakes, figuring out, my dad raised us with a lot of sayings. One was, success is failure turned inside out. And so if you fail, how can you figure out how to turn that around and make it a success the next time? And isn't that what all education is really all about?
And from a coach's standpoint, you've got to appreciate that philosophy.
No doubt. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it allows you to kind of just go for it. That's the easiest way to describe it, you know, without any fear of failure.
Right. Tim Hall, thank you so much. We really appreciate everything you've done. Absolutely. We'll take a time out.
Thanks, Tim.
Yep. When we return, we'll meet the point guard that makes the UMBC engine go. KJ Jackson will be our guest right after this.
Respect is hard work. Respect is dedication.
Respect is earned on the court or on the field.
Respect doesn't judge based on sexual orientation or gender identity.
Respect is being the first conference to partner with the You Can Play project.
And the first conference in the LGBT Sports Safe Founders Club.
Respect coaches, players, and the game.
Respect similarities.
Respect differences.
Spread respect.
Spread respect.
Spread respect.
And welcome back to the show. Gary Stein along with UMBC head men's basketball coach Ryan Odom, and joined by the point guard of UMBC's men's basketball team, KJ Jackson. How are you?
Nice to meet you.
Or Kalen Jackson, right, which is your given name. Right. Do you have a preference, or?
No, my mom always called me KJ as a kid, and it just kind of stuck and just went along with it for the longest.
Sounds good. You've had 2 KJs in back-to-back years.
So it worked the first time.
That's pretty good.
Again.
Absolutely. First thing I wanted to ask you, so you're from Houston, Texas.
Correct.
What about the winters up here? And these aren't terrible winters either, but has it been an adjustment for you?
No, it's a big adjustment. Last Christmas, I was at home. It was like 80 degrees, so it's been a lot different being up here, just dealing with the cold, and it's another thing you just got to adjust to. But it's been all right so far. It hasn't been terrible.
Coach, what about you? You're probably not used to winters either, really. I mean,
we lived in D.C. for 3 years, when Connor was first born. So, I got, that opened my eyes a little bit to the cold. But traveling up to Vermont, the last couple of years, New Hampshire and Maine, a couple of those places, that'll really be eye-opening for you when we get up there.
Yeah, we'll have to see what that's all about.
Yeah, it's really cool, actually.
What drew you to him, Coach?
Yeah, I mean, just the whole package. And ironically, it's pretty similar to Ricky, in terms of, he's about all the right things, from an academic perspective. That was why he was drawn to UMBC initially, and I'll let him elaborate on that in a second. And then, from a basketball standpoint, I mean, he's an elite level athlete. He's got a high IQ with the way he plays. He's very unselfish. He's an elite defender, a guy that, can really bother the other team's player. I mean, he's doing that on a nightly basis. He's one of the leaders in the country in steals, per game, which is really impressive and not surprising at the same time.
And what drew you here?
A big academic standpoint. My mom was very, very big on academics anywhere I went. So that was one of the major keys. And then just to be able to come into a good academic setting and be able to play good basketball. There's not too many schools that have, both components. And when I came on the visit, it was just a good understanding of that, and just getting to know Coach and everybody else on the staff and everybody else that was already here. It was just, it felt right and it felt good. And after talking to my parents, it didn't take too long so I want to commit.
He made me wait a little bit. He did make me wait.
Well, that brings up the question, because UMBC's success in the NCAAs last year happened in March, middle of March. Where were you in the recruiting process at that time?
I was actually committed.
Yeah,
I was committed.
You had already committed.
Yeah,
right.
And I think signed. And I was signed before the season almost got started. Really.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what were your thoughts as the season was going on? You were kind of watching it from afar.
Right, yeah.
Could you believe what you were seeing?
I mean, I was shocked. I wasn't here every day. I talked to a couple of guys. Max Portman, who was here last year, he went to Temple with me, and so I was constantly talking to him every day. Especially after I committed. I wanted to be here as much as I could. Obviously, I couldn't, but it was really amazing to watch, and just to know that that's where I was going to be. And, these were the coaches that I was going to surround myself with, and the new athletic facilities and everything. Like, it was just an exciting time, and just very, very fun to look forward to.
So he had one of the most interesting, conversations with our overall leader, Dr. Rabowski. Tell me about that exchange when you were on your visit.
Oh yeah, he when I came on my visit, I got a chance to sit down and talk with him for a good minute, and we talked about a lot of things, and he asked me a lot of questions, and it was a very, very deep conversation, and he was just telling me a lot about the campus and the school, and about Coach Odom, and how Coach Odom ended up here, and why he wanted Coach Odom to be here, and by the end of the conversation, he was like, I feel like you're going to be here. I'm calling it right now that you're going to come here. And I sat there and I was like, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. It's going good so far.
You weren't tipping your hand.
Yeah, I couldn't tell him immediately. But after a week or so, and I just knew, I was like, he was right. And here I am.
So Ryan, what you're telling me then is that Freeman Rabowski is your ace in the hole recruiter.
He is.
He's
the one
who
not to use him,
absolutely.
Right? I mean, no question. I mean, he is this university. He wouldn't tell you that, but he is in a lot of ways. And there's so much respect that is there, not only from the people here on campus, but nationally and worldwide.
Right,
and that's special.
And that's what I was going to ask you. Are you aware, or were you aware before you sat down with Dr. Rabowski about his reputation, what type of an educator he was?
I was on my visit. I talked to Jairus a lot, and me and him got to sit down and talk. And he was Dr. Rabowski was Jairus' mentor, and so he ended up telling me a lot about Dr. Rabowski and what he meant to him and what he was doing for him, and just the conversations that they had. And it was just funny to me how every time I would stop to talk to somebody, or we were just, they were telling me something about the school, Dr. Rabowski always came up, and how, influential he was and how powerful he was. And so by the time I did get to the meeting, it was, I still didn't fully understand, but I had a good idea of who he was and what he meant to everyone around.
And that meeting actually told me a lot about KJ too, because a lot of kids will go into that meeting and they'll be very nervous, rightfully so, and it's just a big moment, to get in there. And he handled it with such grace and maturity, and it wasn't just Dr. Rabowski, talking all about UMBC. It was he's going back at him and asking questions, and it was a real genuine conversation, which you don't see a lot of times. And so the maturity, that KJ has was another reason, going back to your initial question, why I knew he would be a great fit here.
You were, if not, I'm not mistaken, the leading scorer in Temple College JUCO history, 1,404 points in 2 years. You move up to the Division I level. What's the difference, or is there a huge difference between JUCO basketball, like what actually happens on the court, and what's happening here?
There's a big difference, just in the level of first individual play. Skill sets are a lot different. Guys you can get away with a lot more in JUCO and even lower in high school, obviously, but you can get away with a lot more just being athletic and having natural ability. I feel like the higher you go up, the more you have to hone in on your individual skill set. And then in junior college, everybody wants to win, but at the same time, everybody has the get out of JUCO mentality.
Gotcha.
So
right.
It's harder to find teams that want to play as a team in JUCO, and when guys do that, they're pretty hard to beat. But here, once you get up to the Division I level, it's about wins, and it's very, very often. It's not very often you find teams that just have individual players that just they'll handle everything. And so here you have to be one with the team, and you have to be able to play with the team as well as when it's your time to make a shot or stop the ball or whatever. You have to be able to individually sit down and go forward with that.
That's got to be music to your ears to come from your point guard. I mean, that's it
no
right
question.
there.
I mean, that's your point guard is the extension of the coach, and we've been very fortunate. Just in my coaching career, I've been very fortunate to have some great guards over the years. And even as an assistant coach, we had some tremendous ones, and that they lead the team in a lot of ways. They have the ball the most, and they decide a lot of the things that happen throughout the game. And KJ is doing a wonderful job.
So here you are, right? You're a JUCO transfer from Temple College.
Right.
You come to a D1 program, but not only do you come to a D1 program, he's giving you the keys to the program, basically, right? But you're coming to a program that had 3 tremendous seniors in its backcourt last year that did something that no other team has ever done before in the history of college basketball. What are you thinking then as he gives you the keys to the program?
It's exciting. It's exciting. It's an opportunity that nobody else in the country right now has. I mean, to sit back and watch from afar last year and just enjoy everything that they did, and to be able to say, that's where I'm going to end up, that's where I'm going to be, and to now actually step in, the roles that they had. It's exciting, and for Coach O to do that, I mean, for me it was a bit shocking at first. How fast it all rushed up. I remember in the summer, being here in the summer sessions, I would follow him outside, and I told him one time, I can't wait to start playing. Yeah. And he told me it's gonna come fast, so you can't just skip to the games. And at the time, I was like, okay, but once we got started, it's going. And so for that, I mean, it's just exciting. And every day, I just want to take advantage of those opportunities and try to get better in each way. And just help the team win and get back to that same position and do it again.
So if he's the coach on the floor and you're the coach on the sideline, what do you guys talk about?
During the game?
During the game.
I mean, a lot of times it's strategy. It could be, what's the next play? I need you to do this defensively. Here, get Joe to do this, or Max to do this. Remind him of this. I mean, that's what a point guard does. He's an extension of the coach, and a lot of times it's just messaging and communication. Echoing calls. Is really important. So everybody's organized and they know what's going on, and that's the guard's job.
Your performance in the Drexel game, the second half, was a UMBC record-setting performance. 27 points in the second half of that game is an all-time record. You had 31 for the game. They talk about, athletes, about being in the zone. Right. What were you there? What was that second half performance all about for you?
Just not wanting to lose. We've been in a lot of close games so far this year, and we've, time and time again, we put ourselves in a good position as far as fighting back and being able to even be in those situations after having a few slip ups and having a little mishap here and there. And that was just, I mean, sometimes you just got to say, I don't want to lose this one. And you just want to do whatever you can. Kind of like the other night, you just want to fight as hard as you can. And that particular day, everything was just falling. So I just want to keep getting to the rim and just keep going. And if they were letting me get there, I was going to get there. And if they stopped it, we were just going to find the next open guy.
Yeah. Sounds good. Well, it's on to Florida Gulf Coast. You guys have a big one coming up on Sunday.
Yeah.
Good luck to you both.
Thank you very much.
KJ Jackson, awesome, man. Thank you.
Right,
Coach, I think we're out of time, my man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
That'll do it for the UMBC Ryan Odom Basketball Report. We'll see you next week after UMBC takes on Florida Gulf Coast University. Thanks for watching.